Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Art and Business of Writing podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jones, and I am back from about a 2-month layoff. I had to spend a little bit of time working with finalizing a book that I co-authored. We've gone through the entire process. We've got a publisher on this one, so this one's not indie pub, it's actually traditionally published. So we were working through the galleys and finalizing the manuscript and doing the cover proofs. So now that that's all done, and now we're kind of in the promotion phase where we're about to actually officially launch the book here very shortly, I'm able to get back on the mic and get back to bringing you guys valuable guests who will help you to market and promote your work as effectively as they've done their work. So my guest today, Hannah Carmack, is the author of Seven-Sided Spy, which was released in January. It's her debut novel from NineStar Press. And if you've done any sort of querying or proposal writing and submitting to traditional publishing houses, you will know that rejections, they come by the dozen. And she's no stranger to that. Hannah was rejected multiple times by several publishing houses, but it was a 140-character tweet that landed her this book deal. And she's going to share that today on the show about how the power of Twitter can actually change your trajectory with landing a traditional publisher, if that is your desire. So without further ado, this is Hannah Carmack. Hey, Hannah, welcome to the Art and Business of Writing.
Hi, thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. You're, first guest of the new year, which is exciting. So tell me a little bit about yourself beyond the bio.
I grew up in the small town of Rockford, Illinois. It is a bustling city about an hour and a half from Chicago. I have a book coming out this January that I am super excited for. And basically, my biggest passion with my writing is accurate and fair representation of all marginalized populations, whether it be race, gender, disability, everything of that sort. I am very into bringing those to the forefront.
No, that's awesome. And I think that, we need more of that. I was reading some book trends for 2018, particularly children's book trends yesterday. And they were talking about how that was kind of the thread going forward. And I think you saw it play out a lot in Hollywood last year where they had a record number of female leads. And then they're saying that more of that's going to spill into the book world in the next year, which is really interesting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say with book trends right now, it's everyone wants own voices books. And it's so exciting to finally see those stories going to the main stage as opposed to shoved in the back or being tabbed as unmarketable.
Right. No, it's exciting. We're living in some really exciting times just all the way around the board. But let's dive into your writing. So you have a book coming out called Seven-Sided Spy this month. What's the book about and how did you develop your idea?
So I like to say that it's 7 spies go into the woods and only 2 come out. It's this exciting story where the group of CIA agents undergoes experimentation at the hands of the KGB. But rather than come out souped up like you'd expect in like the X-Men or something, they come out disfigured and deformed, and they're unable to re-enter society and live that glamorous spy lifestyle they were used to. So a lot of it is them mourning that loss while also running for their lives from the KGB as they've escaped. And so it's super fun. It takes place in the hills of Tennessee, so you have a lot of cool stuff going on with the setting. It was a blast to write.
Wow, dude, that's really interesting. And I love that you took a different sort of angle to that as opposed to, like you said, the superpowers and coming up really souped up, but they've got these deformities now they've got to deal with. That's really interesting. So how did you develop that idea? Where did it come from?
So it came from a poorly written, poorly drawn comic that I made like back in like 8th grade. Like it was a long time in the making. And it was just this idea. It was basically an X-Men ripoff when it started. But so I was obsessed with it as a kid. But as I got older and I got more experiences in life, I'm like, there are so many other stories you could be telling with these characters. And so my senior year of high school, I wrote the first draft and I gave it to a couple teachers. And they were like, here's everything that's wrong with it. And I tore it apart again in college. And it's just been going through draft after draft. And it's finally coming to fruition in a couple weeks.
Wow, dude, that is so exciting. I'm happy for you. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. So you worked on this book over the course of a few years. What were some of the challenges that you faced as you wrote this book?
Since it was so much time, there was so much stuff that went wrong just because it was a 6-year, 4-year type project, depending on breaks that I had to take. I would say the biggest challenge came during the end of the second draft. I was hospitalized my freshman year of college, and I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is this awful disease. It's an autoimmune condition, and it really just changed my life, but it also changed my perspective. And honestly, being diagnosed with IBD really improved my writing. But that was a big one because I had to stop writing for a few months. I had to just focus on how do I manage my new illness? How do I get better? I was in school for all of it. I literally got my publishing contract 2 weeks after I graduated from college. So that was crazy. Rejected from like every MFA program I applied. So that did a huge hit to my writing because I was like, well, if no program wants me, I'm probably doing something wrong. And just growth. I know that's weird to say, but like a lot of the drafts came out of the necessity too, because I had improved so much. That sounds weird, but like when you're going from senior year of high school to final year of college, you have learned so much in what you read, what you've done it with essays, what you've basically what you've experienced as well. So much growth, but also tons of challenges.
Yeah, no, sounds like it. So, you talked about having Crohn's disease. How does that factor into your writing life? Does it affect your writing life at all? Are there times that it has any influence?
Oh yeah. I would say like when I'm sick, there's not really, there's always that push to write, but there's not the energy to. It really drains you. It does a lot to your joints. It really messes with your immune system. So, there's times where I couldn't write because I was sick, but there's also times that it's really pushed me to it. Like, it's like early college, you're a young adult, you're doing whatever you want, and then you're slammed with this disease, and you're like, life is incredibly short. It could be gone at any moment. So I need to write these stories before I don't have a chance to. So it's what pushed me, I'd say, from being just a casual hobbyist to pursuing writing full time and going for that publication.
No, that's great. And I like that you took the approach of it being a motivator as opposed to something that didn't motivate you at all or something that you use as an excuse. And I think that people who are listening can hear that and say, wow, whatever I'm going through, I can use that as motivation to push forward and move my books along a lot quicker. So I like that you looked at it as a motivator.
Thank you. I'd say, yeah, there are, of course, days where it's like, life is too hard. Just sit back and binge watch Black Mirror for a little bit. But for the most part, yeah, it's been this huge push, and it's also brought me into the sphere of a lot of illnesses that I would have never heard of, never even known about. I didn't even know what Crohn's was when I was diagnosed. So, like, it's incorporated itself into projects. It's incorporated itself into other, like, means, like poetry. I pursued poetry because I was sick, and that's where I got my start understanding how publishing works, was because I was getting a chapbook done, and I was publishing poems in lit journals. It's been terrible in that it is something that I've learned to live with, but it's been fantastic in that it's made me a better person and a better writer.
Yes, definitely. So now that the book is written, what steps did you take to start your publishing journey with it?
It was crazy. I would say publishing is a lot of rejection. It's not like, it's just a way of life, I'd assume, with writing, is that it is such a competitive field that you are going up against 800 books and they all sound like the next Harry Potter. And so you're basically having to work, and it's a grind. I would say the big steps were identifying agents that I wanted to query, which I did through a Writer's Digest guide that I got from the library. It was 2 years old, definitely well used, but it connected me with some agents that I was interested in. And then you query them, and that takes a while because they're so busy. And then there's the rejection, where we're sorry, but this manuscript wasn't for us, or we would like the first 2 chapters, and then they pass on it. So it was just a lot of going, even when you're exhausted. And once you got that deal, then it began this whole new bundle of opportunity with edits and connections you can make with other authors from your press. And it was crazy from revision to publication. I'm still amazed we made it 2 weeks before it's coming out.
Yeah. So the process of rejection, since you mentioned that really quickly, were a lot of the rejection letters like constructive criticism, or they were just like, did they feel like form letters, or was it a mixture?
I would definitely say form. They are so busy, and I'll be honest, when I initially sent the manuscript out, it wasn't ready. The version that got picked up versus the version I first started querying was about 2 drafts away from each other. So it was just a lot of, we're sorry, but we can't take this. We appreciate you submitting and hope you consider us in the future, which you learn from that. Even if it's just form, you've learned that there is something about it that isn't for that particular agent, and you can analyze, here's why. And there's tons of resources out there where you can track how long it's taken someone to read a query, how long it's taken them versus how long it takes other people to hear back from that agent. There's so much data out there that you can gather and learn from. You just have to be willing to dig for it.
And so you talked about learning. What did you discover was the thing that was getting you rejected? Or did you discover, like, how did that come about?
I think definitely the way I was pitching. Like, I know that everyone says your query letter is like one of the most important things you write, and they are not kidding. Like, I was pitching it with no main character. It was very like, and they're in the woods and it's spooky and oh my God, what's that? And everyone's queer. And then like just reading over it, I'm like, this is the most confusing thing on the face of the planet. No wonder they passed on it. Like, it's really perfecting that pitch and then also having a grabbing opening. My opening has changed a little bit over the years, but for the most part, it had stayed stagnant. And then in the editing with my editor and everything through the press, it's really come more as a more grabbing opening as opposed to just let's ease into the world.
Right. So what would you say is kind of not, I want to say formula, but really just what is kind of the basis of creating a decent query, or just something that you can build from? What would you say are the big highlights that you need every author to have in that?
I would definitely say this is how I managed to get one that I actually enjoyed, log lines for movies. You can look up a bunch of script writing tips and everything, and there's always that pitch of, in a world where blank, someone who is special, a lot to fill in, but it gets you to the point. You know who your main characters are, you know the conflict, and then you also want to add that twist of how is it different than every other story about the hero's journey.
Nice. All right. So I saw that you went to an event, where you got a chance to pitch your book to real people face to face. Can you tell us or tell our audience basically how that works and what your thoughts are on it?
It was so bizarre. I was at Comic-Con Chicago. So in no world did I think I was going to be pitching my book that day. I was there to see my favorite comic writers. They wrote The Wicked and the Divine. I had a full face of makeup on, like eye makeup, and it was like 3 colors of the rainbow, and I was in costume. And I'm walking through all the vendor booths, and I see a couple indie presses. And I chat up the authors. I buy a couple books because I like to shop local. And one of them mentions that they're doing a pitch contest. And they're like, you should pitch us your book. And I totally caught off guard, was like, I don't have any, can I come back? Is that okay? And so, and so they were like, absolutely. So walked to the nearest table, wrote out my pitch on my phone, went back in my full face of makeup and gave my pitch. And they were like, yes, please send us those chapters. We would love to read it. It sounds amazing. You seem like a good author. And so it was really the confidence boost I needed to get back out to querying, because for a while there, you just had to take a break because you're coming home to like 2 or 3 rejections a day. You need that breathing time. And so that was the push to get me from that rest period back into the grind. And it is what got me published.
Wow, that's what a great story.
Yes, no.
Now, so how valuable do you think that experience was? And do you recommend that authors do those sorts of things, go to Comic-Cons or go to book events where they can do live pitching?
Absolutely. I would say C2E2 is one of those rare ones where I was like, this is so weird that you're here taking pitches, but yes, thank you. Some more book-oriented ones. I know the children's writers, it's like SCBWI. They do, at least in the Midwest, they do a spring thaw where it's like just a pitch party and it's all children's and YA authors. And that's a good one. ALA is a great place to make connections if it's in your town. AWP is another one. But also just Comic-Con and like fantasy and sci-fi conventions. That's where you meet the people that are currently writing and working and making a living doing it. It's fantastic. I definitely recommend people go to them just because you're meeting other awesome artists and you're meeting other people in the industry and you're learning while you're there.
Right. Now, you threw out a couple of acronyms our audience may not be familiar with. You said ALA and AWP. Can you explain what those two are? Just share what they stand for?
Yes, absolutely. ALA is the American Library Association. They were in Chicago last year and I had the privilege of going. And that is a professionals show where basically every author you've ever loved is there. They're all signing, and it's this week-long crazy event. I went through work. I happen to work for a university here in Illinois, and so they sent us to help procure new books, identify what we wanted to use for our program. There's a lot of movement in the maker space, which is like creation at a young age. So we were there to view that as well, and we just happened to, meet Neil Shusterman and that group while we were there because they happened to be there signing. So it was just a blast, and you gain so much from being around other people who love what you're doing.
Right on. Now, just hypothetically, just give us a couple of numbers if you can remember or just an idea, but about how many queries did you put out before and then after the event?
Oh my gosh. So before, I'd say I did about 20 to 25. And that was with the like poorly written query letter and the like anxiety and the rejection. At the event, I rewrote a new pitch because I was giving it in person and I really didn't want it to sound confusing at all. And that's really what gave me that solid query letter as opposed to the kind of convoluted, confusing one. And then after the event, I went right back to the grind and I submitted a bunch of places and pursued presses that rather than go through agents, just accepted manuscripts. Because getting an agent is super important if you want to get into like Random House or Simon & Schuster. But I was like, well, I mean, that indie press was fantastic. Maybe there are other indie presses out there that are interested.
Right. And that's a cool thing that you were thinking, kind of the indie press. I know a lot of authors, we want to shoot for the sky and go for like the Penguins and the Pinnacles and the Random Houses, but there are a lot of really good indie presses out there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I would say I mean, I understand the hesitation. There are some really bad ones out there, and there are people like, I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but most every author I talk to is like, you didn't pay to have your book published, right? That's a scam. If they tell you have to move 5,000 units, don't do it. And I'm like, it's awful that there are those types of presses out there taking advantage of people. So I get that hesitation, but I mean, one of the big things about my press is that they're queer oriented. They only publish stories about queer characters, and that has been amazing. I have gotten more attention in that niche than I feel I would have if I was just some random debut author with like a mid-sized press.
Right. And I think it does, like you said, it does help out to be in a niche like that, because then it narrows the scope, and then there's only a certain number of authors who are in that space. So it gives you an opportunity to pitch with a narrow scope.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's been fantastic.
Now, here's the interesting part. So you decided to take a very different approach to querying. Tell our audience about that.
So there has been this movement as of late for the Twitter pitch event. And when I first saw it, I was super skeptical. Like I was Googling Twitter pitch success rate, Twitter pitch legit. I was super like magnifying glass towards these events. And as I read, it seemed like a valuable thing. And then basically how they work is you pitch your book in 120 characters, or I guess 280 now, but it was 120 back then. And you hashtag it with the name of the event, the genre that it's in, and agents that you might be interested in. And some presses have sent agents out or editors to go through all of the pitches and like the ones that they're interested in procuring. If an agent or press likes your pitch, you get prioritization when you query. And so you get a faster response time, and you already have a connection. You didn't seek out the agent sought out you. And so it was crazy and fantastic. And there are so many Twitter pitch events, like hashtag PitMad is the really big one, but mine was through hashtag PitDark, which was a Twitter pitch event dedicated to dark Gothic fiction, which was super crazy and awesome. And there's an amazing community on Twitter. It takes a while to find, as it is Twitter. There's a lot of noise out there, but once you find it, it's amazing.
Now, when did you learn that you were picked up?
So I submitted my pitch, and it was liked by NineStar Press. So then I submitted my query, and I would say about a month later, I got an email from an editor that said, "Hi, I'm highly interested in your book, but I need to know you're willing to make X and Y change." And my immediate response was, yes, absolutely. I happened to be on a bike ride with my father at the time, and we were about 20 miles out from our car, and I was like, we need to go back right now. We need to be at the car in the next hour. I was super excited. So it was amazing and awesome. Within like a couple days, I had a contract. I had people read over the contract. It was fantastic, and it happened really fast, honestly. Like if you had told me at my graduation, you'll have a book deal in 3 weeks, I would have just laughed. So it was exciting and fantastic. And it's just a lot of hustling. You have to query a lot of places and ask a lot of people to read your manuscript, and then eventually it'll pay off.
So what was that winning pitch? Can you tell us what it was? Can you read it?
Yes, absolutely. So for the event PitDark, I did about 3 pitches, and the one that got the most traction was this. James Bond meets X-Men in a Southern Gothic setting with the storytelling style of Orange is the New Black. Hashtag PitDark, hashtag New Adult, hashtag LGBT.
It's like you nailed like every like major every major like storyline that people just love. Like, you have the James Bond, the X-Men, Orange is the New, it was something for everybody in that one.
Absolutely. And it was I was surprised because I always was hesitant to use comp titles because I'm like, well, I made that sound awesome. And I don't actually know if it's that good. But it picked up the most traction. The other two pitches were, the typical like, here's the plot line, here's the central conflict, here's something quirky about it. And those got some likes, but that was definitely the buzzword one was the one that got the most traction of all of them.
Wow. So in pitches like that, do you recommend like authors try something like that? Really just kind of go all out and be unconventional about their pitch on Twitter?
Oh yeah, because like I think you only have 120 characters. You've got to grab their attention. And I think one of the things that, made it more unique than just Harry Potter meets Hunger Games is that it was unexpected combinations. Like James Bond in a Southern Gothic setting, you're like, that sounds like Deliverance. But and so it's a lot of doing the unexpected. So you want to use comp titles, but you want to use comp titles that are very specific and matter. Like people are asking me now, what would you recommend about the book? And Shape of Water has just come out, which is a 1960s spy movie. And I'm like, but it has mutations like mine. And I'm like, well, if you liked Shape of Water, you might like Seven-Sided Spy. And so rather than saying, if you liked big generic blockbuster that is universally loved, that's like, well, yeah, that everyone likes that. But if you say, here's this niche thing that you're interested in, and you might like this other niche thing, there's more chance of follow through because it is something more secluded and you don't see a lot of, fish mutation in the 60s out in the general public.
No, I think there's a lot of truth to that because when you're dealing in niches, whether it's, indie film or whatever you're connecting it to, those things have an inherent following that's genuine. It's not like, oh yeah, well, of course, everybody loves the Avengers. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it gives it a little more flavor, but it does attract more attention because people who are really into those things will be more likely to take a look and see what you got going on there.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us about NineStar Press, the press that picked you up.
So this has been such a treat. Like I remember when I showed my contract to a couple of my other author friends, they were like, this is the nicest contract I have ever seen. I had good royalties. I maintained character rights. They are just this fantastic little press dedicated to publishing queer voices. And I believe, this might be wrong, but they mainly focused on romance. And then like a couple months before I signed on, they had started publishing what is called like literary fiction or just, general stories. It wasn't male-male romance or female-female romance. It was just stories with queer characters. And so since they've branched out in that, it's been huge, all the amazing work that I've seen come out of there. We have a very close author group and you're meeting so many people that are working so hard and everyone wants everyone to be successful. We're all recommending bloggers and recommending events out in the nation. And it's connected me with so many people. And it's also connected me with so many promotion and marketing opportunities, which has been fantastic. And of course, the team at NineStar Press is amazing. My editor, he really pushed me in the best possible way. Like I have become a substantially better writer because of the editing process for Seven-Sided Spy.
Now, does your press also handle like your book design and such and so forth, like the marketing and all that?
Yes, to an extent. They do all of the covers, they have gorgeous covers. There's this wonderful independent artist called Natasha Snow, and she does all of their work, and it's just stunning. And then promotion, they do a blog blitz and blog tour, but you're also encouraged to build your own. So that was super fun to learn how to do and query. And it was a blast because it really feels like you're making a difference with your book. It's not like you're being told, go here and here and people might show up. You're like, I am making sure people show up. I am making those connections. I'm going to my local bookstore, ensuring that they carry it. It was a blast, and it's really taught me a lot about business, which I did not expect coming out of college with an English degree to say I'm trying to be an entrepreneur and hustle.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because I know that with authors, especially the thought of being picked up by a publisher, typically automatically think, well, they're going to do the marketing, they're going to do all the groundwork, but you still have to think and act like a publisher, even though, you're just the author. You have to have those business chops, like you were saying.
Yes, absolutely. I would say my work has connected me with a few other bigger name authors. And even they mention it when I talk to them. They're like, your press is going to do a lot, but you've got to do more and you've got to keep going. And it's like, those are big, Simon and Schuster, Random House, HarperCollins, those are the big guys. And they're even saying, you got to keep working. You never stop promoting. And so it was eye-opening to see people that I considered these behemoths in literature to be like, you got to keep axe to the grind, keep going.
Right on. So what lessons can you share with our audience about using Twitter as a tool to reach potential publishers or even agents?
I think it's a wonderful resource. Most agents have a Twitter, and most agents will post tips on their Twitter. Like they'll say, just read another manuscript where they didn't follow my guidelines, automatic slush pile. Like they'll post things that they typically see and why they don't like them or why they do like them. And then there's this awesome hashtag called manuscript wishlist, which I think is just hashtag MSWL, where agents will post what they're looking for. Like I remember there was this one call for, it was like Southern Gothic witches. And I was like, that's awesome. We do need more fiction like that. I'd read that. And so there's a lot of agents out there telling people what they want, and it could really connect you with someone that you like NineStar Press. I would have never known there was a press out there dedicated to publishing queer voices while also being super understanding with their authors. I only found them through Twitter. And I mean, that right there is, we can promote them more and everything, but that was a connection that I made that ended up turning into that big deal that I was looking for.
Now, have you heard of any other stories of people who use Twitter similar to you and got agents in publishing in the same way that you did or similar way?
Yes, I would say there's, like I had mentioned, hashtag PitMad. That one is huge. Like I've seen people signed with, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, Disney Hyperion. Like the people that do Percy Jackson, like they got it in through them. They've got tons of agents. There's the owners of PitMads, like the owners and operators, they post all their success stories, and it's huge names. Like you see like the Andrea Brown agency and you're like, wow, that's a good agency. And they got it through Twitter. And most of the NineStar Press agents, that's how they find a lot of their stories. Actually, it's because they go searching for that niche thing that they want to read, and then they like it. And that's how a lot of us have found each other, which is super awesome.
So as an author, how do you use Twitter just to post and promote yourself? And then when you're reaching out or trying to connect with authors and agents, how do you reach out and connect to them without sounding like a pest, but really just being more that you're trying to just engage with them?
I would say, like you said, just engage. I mean, I treat them like people. Sure, they are agents. Sure, they are huge authors. But if they post like, man, my dog did the silliest thing, you just go, oh my God, my dog does the same thing. Or like, it's just having a conversation. Just because someone has that agent title doesn't mean they are this unreachable superhuman. Most of them are writers, actually. And so it's just you having a conversation with another artist. Same with other authors. There's tons of week events where it's like Sunday work in progress. People just post one line from their manuscript, and you can go through and you can find writers that you like and be like, oh, I loved the way you used this imagery, or, oh, I really enjoyed this concept. And like I said, it's just building your network and engaging with people in a way that you would engage with everyone else.
And so what are some of your favorite hashtags, like the places that you like to hang out and network on Twitter with other authors?
I love hashtag queer spec, which is basically queer speculative fiction. I'd say they're fantastic. Hashtag buy books is another one. And surprisingly, like book bloggers are super friendly, and most of them are also writers and obviously heavy readers. And so hashtag book bloggers is another one I love. I'd say that's connected me with some awesome reviewers and just fantastic people. And then manuscript wishlist is always kind of fun because it's almost like shopping. Like you're like, what agent do I want that matches with my super niche thing? And then you're like, wow, they're also looking for strong character-driven stories set in Maine, and it works out. And so definitely those are probably my most frequented hashtags.
Awesome. So what's next for you?
So Seven-Sided Spy comes out on the 15th. So there's been a lot of push for that, and there's a lot of promotion. And of course, my big push there is groundwork. That's like going to local stores, local coffee shops and everything, making those connections in the community. I have a novella set to release in March titled Take Your Medicine, which is a Southern Gothic retelling about Alice as a queer girl in 1970s Alabama who is suffering from vasovagal syncope, which is a fainting disorder, which has been super exciting. And I've met so many people with vasovagal, and they've been so excited because this disease isn't normally explored in fiction. And to see it in an Alice in Wonderland retelling that's this fun romp through backwater witchcraft, it's super exciting to make these connections and see people excited like that. And then I have a third project slotted for release in October. That's our pushing dream date. We'll see if we get there. It's a lot of work between me and my editor.
Fun, man. I love hearing how productive authors are. I mean, so you're doing a lot of things this year. That's great.
Yes, thank you. It's a lot of treating it like an actual job and coming home after my typical day job and being like, all right, the next hour, it's still work. You got to get that 100 page or that 1,000 words a night or query 20 bloggers. It's a lot of holding yourself responsible, but it's so worth it.
Awesome. So let our audience know how they can reach you, Hannah.
I would say I have a website, www.hannahcarmack.com. I'm on Facebook. My Twitter handle is @manlyham, which I think is even more funny to think about. And then an agent saw that and was like, yes, I would like Manlyham in my repertoire. And so, I'm super, super open to talking with people if you ever need advice or assistance in determining how you want to pursue Twitter pitching or just going to trade shows and everything. I'm always down to connect with other writers.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me today, Hannah. It was great to talk to you about your book and about using Twitter as a pitch tool.
Yes, absolutely. I would say get out there and check out what's coming because I'd say at least 2 or 3 a month. And some of them are genre specific and some of them are big in general. And it's a fantastic way to find agents and presses that you would have likely never found.
All right. And that was Hannah telling you guys to get to work. So let's get to it. Thanks. You guys have been with Chris and Hannah today on the Art and Business of Writing podcast, and we'll see you next time. Hey, author. Chris here. I want to tell you about a program that I'm really excited about called Group Gold. For a long time, I would post on my Facebook fan page only to find crickets. Very few interactions, very few connections. That is before I discovered Facebook groups through the program Group Gold. Facebook Group Gold program is the most complete one of its kind to help you grow, engage, and monetize your Facebook group. Mark Mawhinney, the program creator, will walk you through every aspect of how to create, manage, and run your Facebook group so that your tribe is coming to you. Makes it easier, doesn't it? When you've got people interacting with you because they want to be there. That's the beauty of Facebook groups over Facebook fan pages. Ever since I started the Facebook Group Gold program, I've been growing my group, building my audience, and I've got people in there who are active and who want to be there, hanging out with me every single day. You can have that too. Just visit my website, www.readywritelaunch.com, and under the offer tab, select Group Gold. Then you can see for yourself the magic of Facebook groups.